For our warm-up today, we're going to experiment with 4 different art supplies that are listed here. And before we get set and ready to do anything with them, just make sure that you use the General's hand sharpener over the bit on your table to sharpen everything up. Now, what I have here is I have pencils that are water soluble. Okay, so that means that they dissolve in water. These are going to turn to paint once I add my water from my paintbrush to them. And I have sets of analogous colors. So these colors are side by side on the color wheel. I have my Faber-Castell here. I have my Derwent. Derwent colors tend to be a little bit more natural versus the Faber-Castell, which is a little bit more Crayola and vibrant. I have my General's chalk pastel pencils, which I'm going to do here, and my Ohuhu alcohol markers. Think of these as blendable Sharpies here, okay? We'll talk about the Ohuhu a little bit later on. But the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is, just with box number 1, my analogous color set, I'll choose the color that's a little bit darker, and I am going to fade it out to the white of the paper. Okay, so I'm going to do some color blending. We did this with some other media or art supplies. And so on the left-hand side of the box, I'm going to press hard. As I go across my box, I'm going to gradually let up my pressure. Letting up my pressure, letting up my pressure, letting up my pressure, and off before the other side. I'm going to come through with my lighter of my 2 colors, and I am going to press pretty hard about 3/4 of the way across. So I'm still pressing pretty hard here. Note that I'm overlapping my strokes of my pencil. And it's also making all different kinds of fiery red orange together. And then right about here, I'm going to fade it out. Okay, so this is what I have for that one. All right, so that's an analogous color fade using the Faber-Castell. If I wanted to, I could add a little bit more of the red, hard, medium, and light on top, just for kicks. Okay, so that is that one. We'll activate that in a little bit. For this one, I have my Derwents. I'm gonna ask myself which is the darker of the 2 colors. For me, it is the green. So I'm going to do my base fade with that. And again, I'm just gonna do the same thing I did over here. I'm gonna press hard, let up to medium pressure as I go across, let up to lighter medium pressure, lighter medium pressure, lighter, 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 and off prior to the end. So I have something that looks like this. And then what I will go ahead and do is add my second color in, hard pressure 3/4 of the way across. Okay. And notice that I'm using these a little bit on their side. The only reason why I'm doing that is they're really too small for my hand to hold, so using them on their side is just a nice alternative. Okay, and I'm gonna press 3/4 of the way across with that hard pressure. And this color will act as the blender. Okay, so I have something that's going to look like this right here. And again, together they're gonna make kind of these really cool tertiary colors together. So think my yellow greens. And I'm gonna let off right in here. Okay. Now for these 2 at the very top, the Faber-Castell and the Derwent, these are water soluble, okay? So what that means is I can use a wet paintbrush on top, all right? So I just have wet paintbrush here, and I'm gonna add my water lightest into darkest. So note that this is turning to paint right in front of me. And if we add that water lightest to darkest, it preserves the light. If we add it the opposite way on this box, the whole thing will be red. So I'm gonna rinse and blot on a paper towel, which I do not have. And again, I'm gonna add my color lightest to darkest, or add my water lightest to darkest. You can see how this is turning to paint. And I have all of these really nice yellow greens. Okay, just like that. All right. Now for the last 2, these are not water soluble, meaning they do not dissolve in water. So I'm going to start with my General's chalk pastel pencil first. And I have actually the same colors that I used here, my analogous set. I'm gonna choose the darker of the 2. So I've got my red here, and I'm gonna do the same thing that we have been doing. Okay, so just fade this out to the white of the paper very gradually. What's nice about the chalk pastel pencils is as I'm going across, it's actually creating a lot of dust. So think of this as like basically sidewalk chalk in pencil form. Letting off my pressure, making it lighter, making it lighter. And so by the time I'm done adding my second color, I should be able to set this powder with my fingers, okay? And so my second color is gonna come in hard from the opposite side. Remember, they're overlapping kind of here in the middle. I'm gonna start to fade or blend this out here, right about here. I'm gonna let off. And I'm noticing that my red is a little bit too light for my taste. I'm actually gonna go over the red one more time. It could just be this chalk pastel pencil that I have. Okay, and then what I can do here is use my fingers and set my chalk powder. So I can set it, I would always recommend doing it lightest to darkest so that you can preserve your fade, okay? And so this is kind of what my finger looks like right now. Kind of almost looks like Cheetos or something like that. This red didn't turn out quite as well as I had hoped. I'm not sure if it has something to do with this particular pencil, but you can see how this one is smeary, okay? These two are water soluble, they turn to paint, this one is smeary. And then with the alcohol marker, what you're gonna wanna do is look for two colors of the same color, one that's light and medium or medium and dark. Now these two look almost exactly the same, so I'm gonna test swatch them real quick on my paper, okay, just to double check. So I have this one here, and I have this one here, okay? So I have a light and a medium color. And so this is perfect. The closer that you can kind of get them, the better you can use them for color blending. Really quick note to self, the way that we're going to use these are dual capped, dual tipped. One has a broad side with a chisel, one has a brush tip. So just make sure that you don't lose track of the caps. And then what we're looking for is, for the broad side, the chisel, that's gonna be for you to cover larger areas with. So we wanna use the chisel tip most of the time. If you're doing finer lines or details, you're gonna wanna use the brush tip, okay? So just kind of make sure that you're using the chisel for your large and in charge areas. If you do it the opposite way, if you use this little brush tip for larger areas, it just wears down the point on that, and then there's no way of doing details, okay? So real quick, I am going to start with my darker of my two colors, and I'm gonna start with the chiseled side. Note that I'm working on a placemat here, so I have a placemat of file folder. And what I'm gonna go ahead and do is just fill this in using the chisel. Okay, so I have something that looks like this. And I'm gonna bring my lighter color in from the opposite side. And then add my darker one back on top and fade it out. So hard, medium, light. Okay, and you can see how they kind of blend together. I'm gonna do one more right down here because I was not paying attention, okay, during that part, and I think I kind of messed that up. Okay, so darker color, I'm gonna start with the chisel and try and blend it out, kind of like this. Take the lighter one, over top, bring the darker one in one more time. And you can kind of just work them back and forth. Okay, and you can kind of see how it's blending, okay? So give those a shot, see what happens.